from Canada? Yes. Anyone in from Europe? Yes. What about Great Britain?
Yay!
You don't consider yourself part of Europe, no? Anyone from London? No? Well, it doesn't matter where you're from, you're most welcome here to Her Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress, the Tower of London. My name is Mark. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
What about the Aussie? Come to you. Got plenty for you. Right, where was I? Oh, yeah. I'm going to be your guide for the next 5 hours. Look at the spare on your face. I'm going to take you on a tour of the tower. I'm going to point out some historic buildings. I'll be telling you stories relating to the building. Stories, not necessarily the truth. I don't want anyone coming up to me later on going, oh, I think you're banging the Duke of Norfolk. I think you'll find I don't care. Our story begins way back in 1066 when William the Duke of Normandy, now known as William the
Conqueror,
defeated the Anglo-Saxon King Harold at the Battle of
Hastings.
Yeah, not quite so many of you joined in on that one. Someone very proudly shouted Waterloo yesterday. Anyone here from France? Bonjour! Not keen on them myself. William was crowned King William I on Christmas Day of that year, but he had to continue to fight his Saxon subjects, but they did not take kindly to Norman domination. And William was looking for someone to build a citadel to impress and dominate the citizens of London. He chose a site just inside the eastern city walls where once a Roman fort had stood. In 1078, he authorised the building of his first royal palace and fortress in this country. Today we refer to it as the White Tower, and it's behind those buildings. Don't bother looking, because it's behind those buildings. Over the next 200 years, successive monarchs continued to add to the tower's defences. The inner bailey or defensive wall, containing 13 smaller towers, was constructed in around 1220. The outer wall was completed in 1280 and has 6 more towers, all of which face south to defend against an attack should it come from France. Another part of the tower's defences was this moat, which you can see here. It was built during the reign of King Edward I and was once filled with water. It was designed to make use of the tidal flow of the River Thames, but twice a day at high tide, the river would flow in and around the moat to flush it clean. Does that sound like a good idea? No. It didn't work. Over time, all the rubbish, raw human sewage, that's dead animals, dead tourists, float downstream into our moat and sink to the bottom. And over time, we'd successfully created the largest cesspit in Europe. This situation continued for a period of 500 years. Imagine what it must have smelled like on a day like today. Best minded offence we ever had. In 1843 it got so bad we filled it in with sand and shingle to the level you see it today. Now, as I said earlier, this was the first royal palace and fortress of its kind to be built here in this country. But over the years it's been employed in many other ways. For example, this is still the place where we keep safe the crown jewels and royal regalia, and has been since 1303. Amongst other things, this was a state prison, and there's the bars to prove it, the most famous prison. Anyone here from Australia? Welcome home! Good game Saturday, wasn't it, eh? Any Serbians here? Good game Sunday, wasn't it, eh? Yes, this is a place of murder, a place of torture, a place of executions. Now, talking of executions, please look up there, to the top of the hill. There you can see a large, prominent grey building with ornate naked statues. That building has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the Tower of London. But it does serve as a useful landmark to let me tell you about a place below and to the right, where if you go out there you'll find a garden, and inside that garden there's a large plaque. That plaque tells you that that was the old execution site. Many people died up there either by being hanged, drawn and quartered, burnt, many other ways between the 14th and 18th century. In fact, 75 men of noble birth Such earls, dukes, barons and bishops were to lose their heads up there by means of block and axe. Just for a moment, let's pause and imagine the scene up there on the day of an execution. Thousands of bloodthirsty, unwashed peasants would have gathered up there for a day of fun and festivity. Fun. They'd have brought the kids, they'd have brought the picnic basket, they'd be watching the jugglers, the fire eaters, the dancing bears and the men on stilts. Everyone was having a super time. Except for one. The condemned man would have been let out of one of these buildings, he'd be wearing his finest clothes. He'd be dragged along here and up the hill to booing and jeering crowds and people pelting him with rotten fruit and vegetables. When he gets to the top, he's got to climb the big wooden steps. At the top of those wooden steps, he's met by a giant of a man, dressed all in black leather. Calm down, madam. The condemned man would hand over a purse of gold and silver coins to make sure the executioner did his job well. And then he'd have a big speech, he'd say his prayers and then place himself down with his neck resting on a block of oak. He'd give a word or a signal. The executioner would pick up the heavy, clumsy axe and bring it crashing down through that poor, unfortunate soul's neck, hopefully beheading his victim with a single stroke. But very rarely. There'd be an ooh from the crowd. There'd be a gush of blood. The executioner would bend down, pick up that severed and still bleeding head by the hair and hold it aloft for all to see. He'd loudly proclaim, "Behold, the head of a traitor! So die all traitors! God save the king!" And the crowd would go wild and cheer. And the crowd would go wild and cheer! Buy a ticket! The head would be impaled on a pike and carried through the streets of London to London Bridge, which in those days was the only bridge across the River Thames. The head would then be left displayed upon the gateway entrance, a sign of the fate that would await all would be traitors. Remember this, when Queen Catherine Howard came down the River Thames and passed under London Bridge, she went under the three heads of her alleged lovers. Now we're going to follow in the footsteps of some very famous people, people like King Henry VIII, people like Queen Anne Boleyn, people like Queen Catherine Howard. Are you ready to embark on a gruesome, gory journey of over 900 years?
Yeah!
No? Okay, we'll just sit here then. Once upon a time there were three bears. Follow me!